Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I'm your host, Dr. Angela Butchester. You guys know who I am, and you know what I like to do on my show. Say it with me. I want to enlighten, inspire, and empower you to become your best self. The scripture reminds us that the tongue is a small thing that makes grand speeches, but a tiny spark can set a great forest on fire. And that's what we want to do today. We want to get you fired up about my guest. Today we'll be spending time with Radiance Davis, Esquire. She is a leadership and well-being strategist, speaker, and founder of Fly Fit Lawyer Chick. I know, great name, right? So you know what I'm gonna tell you to do. Go on, get comfy, get cozy, get your coffee or get your tea, because we are about to get started. Hello, Radiance. Thank you so much for joining me here on Daily Spark with Dr. Angela.
Hi, Dr. Angela. I am so excited to be here. Thank you for allowing me to be here today.
Absolutely. I cannot wait to talk to you about the all that you do. But I realize that I may be introducing you to some new folks, to some new listeners. So my first question for you is, tell us a little bit about yourself. What makes you you?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Radiance Davis, and I'm a mom, I'm a wife, and by trade, I'm an attorney. I have nearly 2 decades of legal experience, in addition to being a lawyer, I also have a business called Fly Fit Lawyer Chick, which Dr. Angela mentioned. I'm essentially a sustainable leadership and well-being advisor, facilitator, and speaker. Through Fly Fit Lawyer Chick, I partner with law firms and legal teams to help high-performing women lawyers thrive without burnout by strengthening their boundaries, building sustainable leadership habits, and protecting well-being.
Oh, I love it. I love it. See, this is why she is on the show today. She has so many awesome things that she is doing. I love it. Now, Radiance, between the years of 2020 to around 2024, I believe, you carried an extraordinary amount of personal and professional weight with you with the all that you were doing. When you look back on
Yes.
that season of your life, I firmly believe that nothing happens for happenstance, but that we learn from the lessons that it gives us. What do you now think are the lessons that you have learned just from personal and professional additional weight that we carry?
Sure. And just to give a little short synopsis about what exactly occurred during those years. So basically, between the years of 2021 to 2024, I had been divorced after being married. I had a young child who I discovered had ADHD. During that time, my father's health was declining, and so we had to end up, being a caregiver and balancing being a divorced single mother. And then on top of that, I also had my law firm at the time, an intellectual property law firm that I was juggling. And then my father unfortunately passed away in 2024. And so all of this is happening within about essentially a 3-year window. And so it was a very trying time for me, as you can imagine. During that time, I relied on, my faith was very big during that time of, I guess you could say, resilience and struggle. I relied on that. I also relied on well-being. So exercise has always been something that I valued, committing some daily movement just to keep my mind and my body right. And then also boundaries. That was the first time in my life where I learned the importance of enforcing boundaries. I feel like,
Mhm.
that's a word that you hear, but you don't really know what it is. But those are the things that, really helped me get through that time. And I continue to, live out those three key things still are a very important, valuable part of how I continue to sustain, my personal and professional lives.
And I have to agree with you there that as women, I think that we don't draw the line in the sand, right? We have soft boundaries, we have suggestions, but we don't always hold them to be fast, hard and fast rules in our lives. And
Right.
that gives other people the impression that it's okay to also not accept our boundaries. So absolutely, that is something that is so important. Thank you for the backstory. I wasn't sure if you wanted to share. So thank you for the backstory. And I know so many people out there can relate. As a breast cancer survivor, I know the pain and the struggle of, having to start all over again and dealing with
Yes.
the what is next type scenario. So, bravo for being able to take that life bump and parlay that into something that others are able to learn from. Not everyone is able to do that. Now, speaking along that same
Yes.
vein,
Thank you.
mhm, you describe well being not as self care, but as a leadership discipline. What shifted for you when you began to see it as this isn't self care, like something that I have to give myself permission to do, but more so as this is a lifestyle choice if I'm going to be an authentic leader?
Yes. Yeah, that's an excellent question. And I will say, for me, well-being was something that I valued and made a commitment to myself to
Mhm,
prioritize when I was in law school. So I was in law school, not having a clue what the legal profession was going to be like, but I knew
mhm,
that I saw my peers around me who were, two were in law school, but they were, having to keep up, drink a bunch of coffee. They were sleep deprived. They just didn't have that same commitment to their well-being. So I would say I
mhm,
learned early on in my legal career the importance of well-being. I will say the
mhm,
switch over to well-being being an essential leadership skill, if you will, would be, I would say, mid-career for me. So, I would say roughly 5 years ago is where it made a shift where it's more than that because I realized that was a key part that had allowed me to sustain the different high performance environments that comes in the legal profession. So I, for example, started my career in big law, which is notorious for being really just a really intense work environment. I was able to sustain that. I sustained being a solo practitioner. And so those are the things that was like the commonality that has led me to be able to do that, to be able to do the legal work, to be able to show up in
mhm,
different capacities as a lawyer, but then also in my personal life without being, completely dragged down and burnt out. There were some times, of course, that, you know, I were challenging, but that was the thing, that was the common thread that allowed me to navigate the ups and downs of life and the legal profession. And so I would say about roughly 5 years ago is where it kind of clicked to me that that is an essential component to high performance success. It's not a luxury. It's a sustainable skill that we really need to leverage if we want to succeed
mhm,
in the long term.
mhm, mhm, mhm. And I love that you take the perspective. I remember being asked, what is the difference between well-being and self-care? And I said, oh my goodness,
Mm-hmm.
if you are not a well-being, like it's in the word choice, right? That I want to be a well
Yeah.
being. I don't want to just take care of self, but I want my all to be okay. And it was
Mm.
like, oh my goodness, why don't we do that more? And it's like, absolutely. And especially as women, I
I
think
love
that we need
that.
to remember, yeah, well, at least that's my perspective, right?
Yes.
Like
Yes.
as
I love
women,
that.
we are taking care of so many people. So it's not just us, it's our kids, it's our significant others, it's our parents, our church member,
Yes.
community. We're doing so much, be it that it's leadership, it's personal, professional, it's community. We're just doing a lot. So we need to make sure that we are well beings. It doesn't mean that we don't do self
Yes.
care because we also care for ourselves, but we must
Yes.
be well beings first. So I love that you take that perspective as well. Now, I want to ask a question about faith. I'm not asking if you go to church every Sunday, if you attend your local Bible study, not the question. But however your level of faith is, because I also understand many times people are new to their faith, and their answer is a little different than someone who grew up in the church. Now, with that caveat being said, faith for many people is an anchor to who they are and what they do. So when they're going through these trials and tribulations, as we all have gone through, might not talk about it, but all have gone through, how did you find that you were able to lean on your faith, or how did your faith help you get through? Not only just bad stuff, but just transitional stuff, professional stuff of being a great leader and attorney.
Yeah, so I would say, I'm definitely the product of a praying grandmother, a praying mother.
Mhm.
I just they just I know they've prayed over me and prayed over my son, and since birth. And so I'm grateful
Yeah.
for that, and I know the importance of that. And so for me, faith dates back to being a kid, and again having that prayer, but then also going to church. We go to Baptist church, and so it was something that was ingrained to me at a young age. And so I would say, since that time, it's something that I've always valued. I would say at different stages in
Mhm.
my life, it has looked differently. Some stages could be like where I would regularly going to church. Other stages I might not have been going to church, that I might have been in between homes, but praying regularly, or reading devotions. For me, it's
Mhm.
about really prioritizing the relationship with the higher being versus what some might be the theatrics of religion. For me, it was more of like the
Mhm.
connection and the relationship. And so for me, I would say like that is what has continued to give me hope, continue to
Mhm.
give me a new perspective. The days where you're feeling down and just feeling discouraged, and you open up and read something or go to church a particular Sunday, and that message is like right on point with what
Mhm.
you are going through. I think that
Mhm.
that is just an amazing thing. And there are many times in my life where I've experienced that. And so it's just something that I've continued to rely on, something that has continued to help me push through the good times and the bad times. And I think it's just so important part of who I am today.
Mhm. I tell you, the power of prayer is definitely a real. I love reading those articles where science confirms that doctors say, the person that came, the person that was
Mhm.
ill, who had family members come in and pray over them or with them, uh,
Yes.
healed much quicker than those that did not. And it wasn't of any particular faith, but just the action of understanding that
Yes.
God is always with us. So I love that. I love it. Well, Radiance, it is time for us to take a very short break. But before we do, if someone wants to reach out to you, utilize your services in any way, or find you on social media, what is the best way to do that?
Sure. So my website is, theflyfitlawyerchick.com. You can definitely visit my website. I'm also on Instagram at theflyfitlawyerchick, as well as LinkedIn. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn at Radiance Davis.
I love it. Alrighty, everyone. Now you know where you can visit. We'll be back right after this. And we are back. Thank you so much for joining me for Daily Spark with Dr. Angela. I'm your host, Dr. Angela Butts-Chester. My guest today is Radiance Davis, Esquire. She is a leadership and well-being strategist, speaker, and founder of Fly Fit Lawyer Chick. I know, great name, right? Well, let's jump back into our conversation. Radiance, I love that you stepped out in faith. You made a bold choice and you owned it 100%. I love when women in particular have the audacity to be exactly who they have been called to be. And you did that. You made the courageous decision to close your law firm and move more into, let's say, an in-house role. How did you discern that choice? And what did it require for you in order to get to where you want it to be? Now, that might be a kind of a long answer, and I don't expect for you to go into the all of it, right? But what were some key things that you needed to either grab a hold of or release in order to make that transition?
Yes, I love that question, especially the point of releasing. And so for me, after so I had my own law firm for roughly 9 years. And so I would say roughly around the 8 year mark, so at the beginning of 2024, is when I had made the decision. I had affirmed out loud, like, this is going to be my last year in business. And so that was the start of it, of me proclaiming that. The second step was then taking the steps of what does that look like. And so for me, it was like, okay, well, you got to start applying to the opportunities. You've got to start phasing out your firm and your clients. And so that's what I did. I started phasing out the clients that I was having, or any new clients who came out. I just made it clear, like, I can only handle this portion. And so, that whole year was a phase out for me. And so then what was interesting is that was also the year. So beginning of 2024, I said, I'm phasing out. I'm going to get a job in-house. May of that year, that's when my father passed away. And then for me, I feel like there's just something that shifted where it was just like, okay, I guess it might have been maybe a part of the grief process of me just wanting something different, a new direction. And then I would say a few months after that is when I got the opportunity, where I currently work as senior counsel with Edgewell, which is where I manage global commercial contracts for a consumer products company. And so for me, it was just a matter of that mindset shift of making it clear that this is what I'm going to do this year, and then making a plan, taking the steps to do that, applying for jobs, phasing out clients, and then the right opportunity came at the right time, and I'm so grateful for that. But I just knew that I was mentally ready for that change, and then I made it happen. That's really what it's
Mm-hmm.
about, is believing that it can happen and taking the steps towards it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I cannot agree with you more there. The believing that it can happen. I think for so many people, that's why taking that first step seems impossible for them because they don't believe that they themselves
Yeah.
can do it, right? Like they admire people who can, they want to do it. In fact, they want to do it, but they just can't envision
Yes.
themselves actually taking that step. So that is
Yes.
nothing to sneeze at. I love it. I love it. Now, as a divorced mom raising a child with ADHD while leading at such a high level with all of the pressures that come along with that leadership, what did you learn about, we talked about the word earlier, boundaries. How can you
Yeah.
help us better understand why, as leaders, it's important that we have those boundaries?
It's so important. And for me, it's a matter of, there are certain things that I needed to have in place in my professional life to allow me to do what I needed to do in my personal life. And so for boundaries, what that could look like, for example, for me, in my professional life is having work time blocks, or there's a certain time a day where I'm dedicating to work. And then there's other
Mhm,
days during the week where I block out for calls. So like I would book all my calls on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So a lot of times if a client or someone reached out on a Friday saying, hey, can you jump on the call? No, I'm not available, because that is
right.
just, one of those things where, and it's not that I'm saying that I'm trying to be rude or anything. These are things that I actually let people know of ahead of time. So like when people are
Mhm,
working with me, it's usually like, oh, this is, I don't do calls on Friday, or, Tuesday and Thursdays are my main, like I'm very, very clear with kind of that, setting the expectations. And then
mhm,
that's the
mhm,
thing about boundaries, is that they are there to protect me, right? They're there to
mhm,
protect me. And so if I don't enforce them, then I'm only harming myself. And so I've
mhm,
learned that, boundaries in terms of my work, and when I worked and how I worked were important, but then also who I chose to spend my time with, my energy, in terms of protecting my energy
Mm-hmm.
boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
people who were maybe draining my energy, or we could say any frenemies who are around,
Mm-hmm.
having to use my discernment to know that during this time that they're not going into this next season of my life. Some, like you say, some friends are here for a reason or a season or a lifetime. And so using that discernment and creating those boundaries to ensure that I had enough energy and focus to be able to care for my family, you know,
Mm-hmm.
provide for my family, all the things that would, come with single motherhood at that time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I love that you said that you had to protect your energy. I think more and more people are starting to become familiar with that phrase. Like they didn't understand what was happening before.
Right,
And it's just you have the wrong people around you. Just because you've known each other
yes,
since high school or you were, college mates, it doesn't mean that you
right.
are forever friends. So, absolutely, we really do have to realize who goes along with us in the various phases and stages of our lives. So, oh, that was a nugget. I hope that someone picked that up for sure. Now, let,
Yes.
let me ask you about along that same vein about the pressures that we deal with. Unfortunately, so many folks are um, in high level positions and they feel that they must constantly be on, that they must press through no matter what. It doesn't matter what day it is, it doesn't matter how their health is, it doesn't matter what's going on with their families because they were taught that saying no or slowing down or being perceived as not being busy equaled weakness or less than. Are there any ways that you suggest to those that you speak to in the audience or those that you help counsel in any way to let them know that it's okay to have a pause here and there or to have those shifts in their lives?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's absolutely okay. It's okay. It doesn't make you less of a leader. It doesn't make you less of a mother. It doesn't make you less of anything. It makes you self aware. It makes you healthy. It makes you less susceptible to burnout. And you're right. A lot of professions, including the legal profession, that's what we're taught is that we have to always be on, we have to be available. But a lot of times you'll see that those people and the higher up that they sacrifice a lot to get there, and meaning
Yeah.
they sacrifice themselves, and some instances they sacrifice their families. And so, but that doesn't have to be your story. That is a choice that we make, right? And I think there is fear that a lot of people have that if they're not available all the time, that they don't show up, that they won't see their career progress in the way. But I think that is false. That is false. There are people in high places in leadership that did not um, sacrifice all of themselves to get there. And so
Mhm.
that I feel like that is a mindset shift that you have to make and
Mhm.
realize that you deserve success without sacrificing yourself.
Mhm. Mhm. Now, thank you for that keyword for to segue into the next question, mindset. You emerged from that particular season of your life more aligned, more authentic, and in walking in the purpose in which you have been called for that season for this season of your life. What does alignment feel like for you? Like, do you find that it settles in your body differently, or does it settle in your spirit differently? I know people say that different ways. So, how does it feel or how does it present itself to you?
Well, I mean, alignment, it feels wonderful when you feel like your life is aligned. And so, as I described to you about those 3 years of my life, which were extremely challenging for me, but how I continued to stay resilient and committed and dedicated to where my life is now. Like, I think people would be amazed at that, of like how I had to go through that to finally be at a place of alignment where, I have this wonderful in-house role that, I'm able to work remotely from with a great team. I have my business, Fly Fit Lawyer Chick, where I'm able to help, other high performing women attorneys thrive without burnout. I got married again, my second marriage. I got married
Yay.
again last year. So, it's like, amazing. And so, what would have happened had I not taken that leap? So I have a wonderful new
Mhm.
marriage and husband, a blended family. Just my life has just improved for the better. And so it feels, mentally, physically amazing. Like I don't even know
Mhm.
how to say it. And it's not to say that there aren't, still stressful moments or still challenges. That's life. That's
Right.
adulting. That's life. You're always going to have
Right.
those ups and downs. But to feel like you're where you should be and that
Mhm.
the best is yet to come, like there's so much more where that came from. It's just a wonderful feeling. And so I just would encourage people to not be afraid to start over, to not make that big move, that big scary move, and just know that you can do hard things. I did really hard things, and I was able to get through that to the other side. And I think that's so important and so powerful, that you can do hard things, and there's so much amazingness on the other side when you do.
Hmm. Hmm. Congratulations on being a
Thank
newlywed.
you.
Exciting, exciting. I love
Thank,
it. I
thank
love
you.
it.
Thank
I'm
you.
I'm a I'm a girl, I'm a girl's girl, right? So anytime I hear a woman say it's like, I'm in love, I'm a fiance, or it's like, I just got married. It's like, oh girl, good, right? Like clap,
Yes.
clap. This is awesome. Like, I want nothing but
Thank you.
happiness, peace, joy, love, and abundance for you. So I
Yes.
think that is just so
Yes.
awesome. Congratulations. Now, my
Thank
last
you.
question,
Thank
you are
you.
so welcome. My last question for you, and that is, as a part of our Black History series that we're doing, Still We Rise, Still We Lead. What legacy do you hope that your story offers to leaders, like a page in the book of our collective stories? Who do you hope they will see? How do you hope that you're having navigated grief and transition and helping others to learn how not to be burned out? How do you hope that all of that wraps into your chapter on legacy?
I think I would just say I want to be remembered as someone who you felt good once leaving their presence. So that's so
Yeah.
important to me, that I leave a light, I leave warmth, I leave kindness amongst anyone who is in my presence or near me. That's really important.
Hmm.
And I also hope that people can see that you can choose you. You can
Hmm.
prioritize yourself, prioritize your health, thrive, but still be an awesome mom, still be a committed and dedicated wife, and then an
Hmm.
awesome business owner, employer, all of those things. So I think that those are the things that are really important for me to be remembered in terms of in the legacy that I leave here.
Hmm. I love it. I love it. Well, Radiance Davis, Esquire, thank you so much for spending some time with me here today. Now, before I let you go, if someone wants to reach out to you online and on socials, what's the best way to do that?
Please check out my website, theflyfitlawyerchick.com. I'm also on Instagram at theflyfitlawyerchick. Please connect with me on LinkedIn, Radiance Davis. Thank you so much, Dr. Angela, for having me today.
You are so welcome. Thank you for being on. And listeners, thank you for spending some time with us here today as well. You could have been anywhere and you chose to spend it with us, and I thank you for doing so. I hope that I have once again allowed you some time to be inspired, enlightened, and empowered. As always, may the Lord continue to shine his face upon you. May you receive his grace and his mercy in all that you do. Until next time, everyone, remember that you are blessed in the Lord. Have a great day, everyone. Bye bye.